Welcome you all to Chapter 15 of CHD 201, Intellectual Development of Preschoolers. The first section we will cover is how preschoolers learn. Preschool children build on what they have learned as infants and toddlers. Because they have better motor skills, their world broadens. Preschoolers can interact with more objects and people and participate in more events. This enables them to observe more and develop more advanced ideas about the physical attributes of their world. Brain development is still rapid during the preschool years. Brain specialization allows for many new abilities. By the age of 3, preschoolers use thinking to solve problems even better than before. They do not always have to use trial and error. Their problem-solving skills are affected by past sensory and motor experiences. Spoken and written words are symbols used to represent ideas or actions. Language symbols are more abstract and thus more difficult for children to understand. Unlike symbols used in pretense or in drawing, children do not decide on language symbols. Language symbols already exist in a culture and must be learned. Therefore, words are more abstract compared with most other symbols. When we are talking about a preschooler's intellectual abilities, we immediately think about the two theorists, Piaget and Vygotsky. They are our cognitive theorists, okay? And both Piaget and Vygotsky noted that children gain new intellectual abilities by developing abstract meanings separate from their real world. So let's talk for just a second about obstacles to logical thought. So logical thinkers, unlike intuitive thinkers, construct rules that kind of guide their thinking. So for an example, if you look on page 425 of your book, you see the experiment with 3 balls. The rule is that one turn keeps the ball in the same order, but a half turn reverses them reverses the order. So the intuitive thinker does not use the rule, but simply forms a mental image of the balls as the tube is turned. So the child may track accurately for a few turns, but likely loses track after more and more turns. So when we think about egocentrism, Piaget describes egocentrism as the preschooler's belief that everyone thinks in the same way and has the same ideas as he or she does. Egocentrism does not mean that children are selfish or too concerned with themselves, but rather that they view the world in relation to themselves. So problems with cause and effect, that's another obstacle to logical thought. Logic is required for understanding cause and effect. Because of this, preschoolers' lack of logic causes many problems with cause and effect reasoning. One thing for sure that we know is that sentence structure expressing cause and effect is not an easy thing for preschool children. So like an example might be, like changing the order of words. Instead of saying, because I'm wearing my raincoat, it is raining, instead of saying that I'm wearing the raincoat because it is raining, okay? So they kind of reverse it in why they might be wearing that raincoat. So the next thing we'll talk about is what preschoolers learn. So during the preschool years, brain development and cognitive changes in pretend play, mental images, drawing, language, and memory lead to better comprehension of complex concepts. Toward the end of preschool years, children make advances in several areas of concept learning and begin to lay the foundation for understanding and using logical concepts. They also learn new word meanings and develop more complex grammar skills. So, many new concepts emerge during the preschool years. The major areas of beginning concept learning for preschoolers include the following: noting physical attributes, understanding physical knowledge, and then using logical thinking concepts such as sorting and classifying, ordering by attributes, seeing cause and effect, understanding spatial concepts, understanding number concepts, and noting time concepts. So when we're talking about noting physical attributes, from the moment they are born, children use their senses to develop concepts about size, shape, color, texture, and any other physical attribute, which are concrete qualities that can be sensed, okay, using your sensory organs. During the preschool years, children's sensory organs mature and their senses become more coordinated. As a result, children's abilities to make sense of their environments improve during the preschool years. Intellectual problem solving depends on children's understanding of logical thinking concepts. Logical thinking concepts are not directly experienced through senses, but are developed through thought, such as noting similarities and differences in objects and coordinating simple relationships like classifying, ordering things by attributes, and counting. So when we're talking about sorting and classifying objects, during the preschool years, children's abilities to sort objects improve. Preschoolers' sorting techniques differ from adults' techniques. For example, a preschooler might sort a boat, a paper plate, and artificial flowers into one group because these objects were involved in a recent picnic. But around the age of 4, preschoolers develop their executive functions needed to change sorting criteria. So preschoolers, they will sort by all different types of attributes as they get older, like color, shape, size, material, patterns. They also classify. So classifying involves choosing a certain attribute and then selecting all the objects that contain that given attribute, okay? Classifying is a much more difficult skill than sorting. And this is because sorting involves paying attention to a variety of attributes, whereas classifying involves just focusing on that one chosen attribute while considering all others not belonging. And usually children don't master that classifying skill until around school age years. So when we're trying to talk to children about understanding number concepts, they have from very early on, have a pretty basic understanding of quantity, that many of them understand the term more. And they can imitate adults counting. So for example, young children may be able to just simply say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's rote counting, just saying the numbers as you count. However, young children can rote count, but they seldom understand the one-to-one relationship that takes place when counting objects, like coming up with a quantity, and that is rational counting. Okay, so that's the difference between rote counting and rational counting. During the preschool years, language and communication abilities continue to improve. Preschoolers are better able to articulate and are rapidly learning the vocabulary and grammar they will need to communicate their needs and feelings effectively. Preschoolers' egocentrism impacts their speaking in that their language often reflects their exact thinking. Preschoolers use egocentric speech, which means preschoolers talk as though the listener will understand what they are trying to communicate in the same way they do. Thus, they often do not communicate all the needed information in order to understand something. And that is simply, like I said, because the preschooler, because they are egocentric, They believe that everyone thinks exactly like they do. So let's talk about learning grammar. Brain development research shows that the window of opportunity for learning grammar through listening closes around the age of 5 or 6 years of age. And because of this, grammar development is critical during the preschool years and becomes more difficult once children are school age. However, there will be some grammar problems associated with older preschool children. One is pronoun usage. And then they may say him and me went to town instead of he and I went to town. And then also they apply some grammar rules too widely. Like they may say they eated instead of they ate. Okay. And what that means is they know that ed is put on the end of a word to make it past tense. And so instead of changing eat to ate, they just say eated. So next section, meeting preschoolers' intellectual needs. During the preschool years, adults continue to help preschool children meet their intellectual needs. As they did during the toddler years, adults direct children's attention to activities and to problems that must be solved. For preschoolers, the home, child care, and education programs and their neighborhood playgroups are the most important places for learning. Preschool children are on the go. Their motor skills usually improve in conjunction with other lessons they are learning. For example, preschoolers use their gross motor skills when they engage in pretend play and their fine motor skills when they sort and draw. So those motor skills are developing in combination with teaching other skills as well, okay, instead of just like purely motor activities. So I believe that concludes us for chapter 15. Make sure that you use your PowerPoint, read through your book, and use all the other information found in your Blackboard course. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me by Blackboard message or email.